All right, let's do this. And this morning when I checked my phone, by the way, this is a real conversation, so brace yourself. I tend not to sugarcoat things because I think it's important to be real. I opened up my phone and I saw, so how do you make the greatest difference in the world and into the future? If you have unresolved issues with your family, if this is too much for you, then please go back to doing life however you've been doing. But if you really want to do some real work, it's important you get real with yourself and stop carrying fear and pain and unresolved issues further. Welcome to episode 1 of the Life Reinvention Chats. My name's Nash Mackey. I'm a rapid breakthrough and personal performance coach to high performers around the world. And I'm very grateful to have your company here today in this video. I'm here to add some value, at least that's my intention, to support you reinvent yourself today and into the future to be the best possible version of you. I have been on a journey over the past 10 years and probably longer than that, actually. I'll share this with everyone listening, if that's okay. Well, it's going to be okay because I'm the one talking. But hopefully for your ears, this is okay as well. I got interested in mentorship when I was about 14 years old, when one of my brother-in-laws took me to an old weightlifting gym and started teaching me how to weightlift because he could see that I was a pretty frustrated teenager. And he saw that I had a real interest in lifting weights. And while I wasn't very good at a lot of things, I could lift a certain amount of weight at the time. And he saw something in me. He took me under his wing and started teaching me how to do Olympic weightlifting, the lifts at least. Certainly never went to the Olympics, far from it. But the clean and jerks, the snatches, the squats, all this stuff, the deadlifts, all that great stuff. Teaching me how to breathe in order to do the lifts for recovery, build my lung capacity. I started learning so much. And I found myself immersed in this new world. And my mind got opened up to the fact that when you get around cool people, people who've got experience in a field, it can accelerate your learning and open you up to a new world of possibility. And strength training in different aspects became a part of my identity all the way through my younger years. I'm still fairly young. I'm very grateful to say that I've been blessed to learn what I have in the earlier period of my life. So I got to see very clearly, though, having great people in your corner makes a real difference. And having people who can see something in you makes a difference. And I've been on a journey to learn how we as humans can really get the most out of ourselves. Because I believe every single one of us has a phenomenal amount of potential, but not every one of us is doing the things to tap into it and access that potential. There are some people who are relentlessly committed to accessing that potential, who refuse to let the events of life crush them, who are constantly seeking out how they can find a new edge. There are people out there who are looking to push the boundaries of what has been done up until this point and go above and beyond to set a new standard, to set the bar even higher. And I think that as a human being is one of our greatest gifts. We have the opportunity to become someone, to be someone. The question is, who will we be while we are alive, walking this planet? And the best indicator of what will determine how much we get out of ourselves is ultimately, what do we think about ourselves? What do we believe about ourselves? Because we'll never rise above that belief of ourselves. So my work is supporting people upgrade their belief of themselves, not feeding them fluff and fantasies and ideas that aren't true, but really connecting to the potential that is within them and activating that potential. And that comes through letting go of lies about ourselves, through letting go of stories we've been playing over and over about who we are, based on other people's opinions, what the world is about, what life is about. And when we adjust our perspectives, which are completely within our control to adjust, by the way, our entire lives shift. I have experienced that myself. I have seen now thousands of people do that as well. So no one can convince me that it's not possible. With the right level of commitment, it can happen. So these chats are all to support you do that. So I started out with the weightlifting, got a real feel for that. And then I wanted to take the training further. And my brother-in-law happened to be really great at mixed martial arts. He was a black belt in judo, and I really took to that. I would go and mow lawns to save up money to work with him one-on-one because he was starting his gym out. I wanted to support him. I wanted to pay him the proper rate. So when I mowed lawns in the heat of summer and in the coldness of winter, that we definitely experienced both of where I grew up, Tasmania. And I would save up to pay him $50 an hour, which is quite a lot of money considering how much I was earning per hour to mow these lawns. And I would put all of that money toward training with him because I understood it could fast track my growth. And I still have retained so much of what I learned. I'm sure there's a lot I've forgotten, but so much of it is still in my mind. And I got to see again the power of mentorship, getting around the right people. There's so much to be said for that. And people along the path who are a little further along than you or a lot further along with you, this is something really key to understand. They will always lift you up. They will always encourage you. Someone who's further along will never pull you down. If they're pulling you down, it's because they're not as far along the path as you on some level, because there are multiple dimensions to this thing called life and multiple forms of intelligence. And some of those include intellectual intelligence. That's the one most people think is really important and place a lot of value on. It's probably one of the least important ones, believe it or not. Still very important, but there's social intelligence, there's emotional intelligence, and just to name a few. So someone might have more ability in a particular area, but if they're not ticking the boxes in these other areas, maybe that's something that indicates that they're not quite as far along as you. So someone who is truly further along on the path will lift you up, will cheer you on, will call you forward. And if you are someone who can see in your circles that other people might be in a pattern of pulling other people back and distracting them and feeding them limiting ideas about life and themselves, if you can see that going on, then maybe you are someone who's a little further along the path than you've given yourself credit for. And maybe it is your role as someone who is further along the path to educate other people, to provide resources to other people, to make other people aware of their patterns. This is something really key to understand. Sometimes I see people who are complaining about everyone around them, about all these behaviors they're doing. And then you look at it a little closer and you find out that those people are oblivious to the patterns. It's all subconscious. They're just acting these patterns out. But if you're the one who's aware of it, then it's your responsibility to do something. And there's a few different things you can do. You can pick your ass up and move. Or you can start making people aware of their patterns and providing better alternatives. Leadership, very important in life. And if we're waiting for other people to go first constantly, then it's probably not wise to complain when things aren't working out the way we want. If you can see something that needs improving, be willing to be the person who steps up and makes those improvements. That has a lot to do with why I've created the content I have over the years now, thousands of bits of content on the different social media sites I've had, on the different platforms I've operated from. And I did that because I could see that there is a need on earth for more understanding and clear-cut ways of operating that support us be at our best. So to that end, I want to delve deeper into our conversation today, and that is really around how do we be really useful on earth? How do we be truly useful? And how do we set ourselves up to create a great future? You might have done a lot of work on yourself. And by work on yourself, anyone who's listening to this is very new to that concept. That essentially means you're looking at yourself very closely. You're looking at your thinking, you're looking at your behaving, you're looking at your emotional patterns, and you're assessing all of it. You're assessing it all to consider, is it all serving you? Is it all leading you somewhere, taking you somewhere that you want to go? So you're becoming more intentional. And the inner work, or the working on yourself, as some people call it, is all about refining your thinking, your behaving, the emotional patterns you live in, and your understanding of emotions, and your understanding of other humans and human behavior. And you're just on the journey of growth. You're refining yourself and ultimately sculpting out the best possible version of yourself, despite what the past has been. And you're being deliberate with what you will carry forward into the future. That is what I would class as the inner work, if you want to call it that. How do we be the most useful versions of ourselves into the future? And what can we do in this world where, despite there being so much information, despite there being so much connectedness on social media, at least, despite there being so much available, despite there being these apps where you can go and type a prompt in and get full essays written for you, full formulas written out, full game plans written out, dieting plans written out. Despite having all of this, there are so many people who are lost and confused and miserable. And this is evident in how much things like anxiety medications and depression medications are going up. What's the turning point for us? How do we start moving in a new direction? I often think about this, and I was certainly thinking about it when I woke up at 3:45 a.m. this morning. Here's what I would say to begin, for what it's worth. Sweep your own doorstep first, as the quote says. Be the change you want to see in the world. How do you do that? Truly, how do you start doing this personal development work, or this inner work, or this working on yourself that people talk about? What does it actually look like? Does it just mean going and listening to podcasts and then going to the gym and diving in ice baths and maybe doing some fasting here and there? Is that what it's about? As part of it, maybe. If that feels like something that would benefit you, great. If that causes you to grow, great. If that causes you to be at your best, great. But it's certainly not all of it. I think there's something really fundamental we all get to understand and start working on. And that is the relationship to our primary caregivers. In other words, for most of us, our parents. And then if parents weren't your situation growing up, you didn't have parents, in other words, if you didn't grow up in that stereotypical dynamic of mum, dad, or parents in general, and the family home and all that stuff, which a lot of people didn't, then the people who cared for you, or the people you expected to care for you, and maybe who didn't. But that dynamic that you grew up in is a great place to start. And cleaning that out, ordering that a little bit, is pretty wise. And you might be thinking, well, how does that make a difference in this world where there's so much craziness going on? There's so many people lost and confused and empty. It's because those first years of your life have such a profound impact on all of us. Every single one of us, those years stuck with us. They influenced us more than we realize. They influenced us to speak the languages that we fluently speak. Unless you've gone and learned a language later on in your teenage years, which is possible. But those languages that you learned automatically, that was what was happening in those early years, just as one of the things. You also took on the dynamics that you grew up in. You took on the energy of the people around you. When I work with clients, often I can ask them what their parents felt inside their bodies. And it's amazing how we know our parents. We just knew that they were feeling a particular way. And I've had grown-ups who've identified what they think was the energy their parents were in when they grew up, go and have conversations with their parents. And the parents have confirmed, yes, I felt that very often. So we, as kids, took on some of that energy that our parents were in. Now, this isn't a bad thing. This isn't something that's out of place. It's just something we want to become aware of. And it's something we want to address because that will be playing in our background for better or for worse. So, how do you make the greatest difference in the world and into the future? If you have unresolved issues with your family, that is where it's important to start. That is where you start. And I'm not saying that you need to feel like you need to go and hang out with people who are, let's say, operating in a really disempowered way. It's not about that. It's about you adjusting your perspectives to actually say, hey, if it was tough, acknowledging that and saying that was tough. Might have even been brutal. Might have been full on beyond words. But you adjust your perspectives to the point where you can say, yeah, that was my reality and I got through it. And here's what I learned. And here's how I'm going to be as a consequence of that. And you keep doing the work until you look back and you just have ultimately a level of acceptance and beyond that, more ultimately, if that's possible, a level of gratitude where you say, hey, that was the fire that cracked me open. And I'm grateful for that because this is who I'm going to be as a consequence of that. That's the kind of mentality I love to support people develop. So why do I say to start with your family if you really want to make the world a greater place? And here's why. Here's why I say that. Again, this is just my perspective. You do what you want, but this is just what I would offer for what it's worth. As children, our parents represent the world. The parents are everything, or your caregivers are everything. And we expect a lot of them. We come onto this planet with expectations of our parents. We expect them to take care of us and meet our needs. And we all have needs growing up. And some of those needs are completely valid and acceptable and appropriate, as in wanting to be loved, wanting to be fed and taken care of and protected. That's just, of course, fundamental needs, important needs. And for some people, most people, I would say, those are taken care of on some level, which is great. For others, it's just not the case. And for others, they might have had some of the more basic needs taken care of, but they never felt like beyond those really, really basic needs that the other needs they had were ever really acknowledged. Maybe it was a need to be seen in your particular skill set that you had, or demonstrating that particular skill set. Like you might have been really good at creating and your parents never saw you in that. And that was a need you had that never got met. And so essentially what I'm inviting you to consider is what feels unresolved in your family with your parents. I've had people who feel unresolved in what their parents named them, and they've held on to that as a charge, and you can hear it in their voice. I've had people who feel like their parents were always there, but they were never there. Again, they could feel that their parents were emotionally absent. So whatever it is for you, get clear on what feels unresolved with your primary caregivers, with your parents, or whoever else was around you growing up. Start there and go to work on closing those loops out. I wanted to have this conversation in particular because this morning when I opened my phone, I run my routine every morning, and then I get to a point where I've filled my own cup and I come and check my phone. And this morning when I checked my phone, by the way, this is a real conversation, so brace yourself. I tend not to sugarcoat things because I think it's important to be real. I opened up my phone and I saw a woman being dragged from a car in a war zone, and she was in an absolute state, as I'm sure you can imagine. And she'd been through a brutal experience. And I just saw that play out on a particular little reel that popped up on my phone from someone in the military who I followed. And he was just saying how crazy this all is. And I saw those men who were dragging her, and I just felt it within my body. They are, all of us are, as big people. And that word big people, or that name big people, comes from, I believe it's Vanessa Lapointe, the phenomenal, I believe she's a childhood psychologist or child psychologist or parenting expert, um, wrote the book Discipline Without Damage. Big people is that term she uses for adults, essentially. But I saw these guys dragging this woman from the car, and I was like, what happened to them as boys that led them to that point where they think that that is appropriate? And whenever I see an adult acting a particular way, it's a pretty clear indicator that they have something unresolved from their childhood. Now, there is a phenomenal YouTube video. Again, this is real talk. If this is too much for you, then please go back to doing life however you've been doing. But if you really want to do some real work, it's important you get real with yourself and stop carrying fear and pain and unresolved issues further, because it hurts more people than just yourself. Get the support you need. Do the work that is required. There's a great video, I believe it is called Step Inside the Circle. And it's an experiment done in a prison yard where the woman who's running the experiment, who I believe experienced a very, very full-on past, has now gone on to do this incredible work. And it just, go watch that video, Step Inside the Circle, if you really want to open your eyes to how real what I am talking about is. I see this every single day in the work I do as a coach. Yes, I work with high performers. Yes, I support people get more out of themselves. Yes, I support people become more disciplined, more dialed in with their habits and mentality, and get more out of themselves. But I do that, a huge part of that is supporting them put down the baggage of what they've been carrying. So I want everyone to succeed from a healthy place. I was sharing with a group of entrepreneurs recently that there's three energies I believe you can operate from. One is the energy of desperation. You never had it as a kid, and so as an adult, you want to have it. The next one is obligation. You become someone, you be someone because you think it's what other people want of you. And the last energy, which is, I would say, the healthiest energy, the best energy, if you want to call it that, would be inspiration. Showing up and living out of inspiration. That is the power state. And that is what I want to see more people operate from. Because when we're operating out of desperation and obligation, we often sacrifice ourselves. And while I do believe there's a time to be selfless, there's also a time where, as I've heard it said, where selfishness can be one of the highest virtues. When again, you've not taken care of yourself and you are a walking embodiment of toxicity that you've picked up from other people. Now, you might say, well, Nash, it's not fair that I went through what I went through in the past. It's not fair that I have to do work to put down what other people projected onto me. Well, guess what? When you do that work and you're willing to sit down and do what's required to break through that, you will become someone. You'll become a version of yourself you've never been up until this point. You'll activate something new within yourself, and you'll have to break through whatever you've been carrying. And in doing that, you'll actually get to see what you're made of. Because the truth is, whatever you have been through up until now, you've made it through. And you're just beginning. The best years of your life can be before you. And I can say that with certainty because every single one of us have the ability to make life something incredible. We've got to commit. We've got to be willing to do what it takes. We've got to be willing to put in the work, and we've got to be willing to be honest. For those of you who are willing to do that, you'll get to experience what it is like to live life feeling free, feeling powerful, feeling unstoppable, feeling ready to embrace life. Whatever life throws at you, you take it and you use it as fuel. Is that possible? Is that actually possible? It is, with the right perspectives. I have taken some incredible challenges in my own life and used them as fuel. I have seen clients do it who have gone through stuff that I cannot even fathom. Take it and use it as fuel to become more loving, more compassionate, more impactful versions of themselves. And beyond just me and my clients, you can look on the internet and search some people who have taken incredible adversity and turned it into their mission. I'm a huge believer in turning the mess we face into our mission. This is possible for every single one of us. Thank you for being here today. We went a little deep, and I appreciate you giving me your time and attention. I hope it's been valuable on some level. There's so much more I could say on this subject, but I'm going to keep it there for now. If you've received value, please let me know in the comments below what you're taking away from this, what you're going to take and implement. If this has really spoken to you, feel free to share it out. I would greatly appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do that. Be sure to follow me on social media if you don't already, at Coach Nash Mackey, at Coach_Nash_Mackey. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Life Reinvention Chats.